This is your first look at the Confederate lines. That right there is a Louisiana monument, and that is the Great Redoubt that monument is sitting on, and it's one of the largest forts here in Vicksburg. You can't see the whole size of the fort because it's hid by the trees on either side, but take my word for it, it's a large fort. Grant is going to have 22 cannon lined up in this position, and what he's going to do is he's going to start pounding the face of that fort, hoping that he can weaken it, that he can break through the fort, and they can assault and they can go in. But it's not going to happen. We do know that what is going to happen here is that he pounds the face of that fort, and he's going to weaken it because the commanding officer, General Hebert, is going to order cotton bales to reinforce his walls because they're crumbling down. So you think about it. These cannon are going to be shooting that fort on and I say a 24-hour-a-day basis. 24-hour-a-day, on again, off again. Just enough to keep the Confederates from getting any rest, to keep them confused as to what's going on. These cannon take 7 men to fire them off. 7 men for one. They can fire these things if they're in an intense battle. They can fire them off 3 times in a minute. But what they're going to do is they're not taking precautions. They're not swabbing the barrels out, you know, and it's an accident waiting to happen. Actually, what's going on here? But here they're just going to lob cannons at them. The thing about it is that fort is 550 yards away from us. Those cannon can shoot 1,350 yards. So if the balls miss the fort, they're going to go straight into Vicksburg. They're going to go behind the lines. They're going to get them in. I mean, so 24 hours a day. One man, and I can't quite believe this, but then I don't know. If you figure in that Porter's on the river firing, you've got mortars across the river firing, you've got Grant firing cannon, and Grant's got 220 cannon here. One man says that he counted the cannon that fell on the city for a 24-hour period, and it was 15,000. But now you can take it.
All right, this is looking out from the observation tower. Grand Gulf over the Mississippi River. Part of the Civil War campaign against Vicksburg, which is north of us. I'm pointing north right now. General Grant came in a little south of here, crossed the river, and marched up to Vicksburg and got pushed back in a series of little battles until he finally laid siege to the city, and it surrendered July 4th, 1863.
A rock across, I don't know if I'm going to cross, skipping a rock in Mississippi.
Here we are in front of the Maryland Monument, and across the street there's this big hill. It's part of the Confederate line. Jimmy's taking pictures up there. And there he is, walking up this hill. Taking pictures of the Confederate line markers. This part of the battlefield is not in the park. It's all on private property. Some of the markers we visited outside of town yesterday at Port Gibson were so encrusted with rust and lichens and stuff you couldn't read them. Here's where your rock climbing skills come in handy. Watch out for cars. Oh, you get to make a wish. So, 150 years ago about, these Union soldiers dug these trenches here as part of the Union lines besieging Vicksburg, which would be down there. We're here on the battlefield. Up ahead you can see the Illinois Monument, which is the largest, most ornate one here. Illinois sent more soldiers than anybody else. They had more from Illinois than the whole Confederacy had defending Vicksburg. Hey, go ahead. Hey, bud. I didn't get you climbing up. The camera didn't work at first.
It's the climbing up.
This is the Illinois Monument, the most ornate and largest on the battlefield. There were more soldiers from Illinois fighting here than all of the Confederates defending Vicksburg. There's 47 steps, one for each day of the siege of Vicksburg. Words by Abraham Lincoln, the mystic chords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of union when again touched, as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. Abraham Lincoln. It's on the Illinois Monument. Words of Grant. We have but little to do to preserve peace, happiness, and prosperity at home and the respect of other nations. Our experience ought to teach us the necessity of the first. Our power secures the later. Okay, entering into the rotunda of the Illinois Monument with the oculus at the top. Quite an echo in here. And the names of every soldier who served in this campaign written on the walls all around us. About 36,000 we're told. 36,000 folks from Illinois. Over the door was the names of Abraham Lincoln and General Ulysses S. Grant. Here you get a good view of the Union trenches they dug in front of the one of the Confederate redans. They were attacking over there on that last hill. So there were Union lines all across about an 8-mile radius around Vicksburg outside the Confederate lines. But these trenches were common to protect the men as they try to attack the redans and forts on the Confederate line. Alright, this is kind of a cleared area where the Union tried to tunnel up to the fort. Actually tunneled under the ground we're standing on. But it's one of the few areas that's actually cleared to kind of picture what it might have looked like during the actual war with the fort up top there. Trenches they dug, and the way they tried to assault the fort. Okay, this is Jimmy climbing up part of this hill the Union Army would have tried to assault to get to the fort at the top. What did it say up there?
Something for Iowa.
Okay. I'm going to go up to the top. This is just one of the many thousands of monuments. This is for Louisiana. William W. Martin, Major, 26th Infantry, killed June 26, 1863. The 26th Louisiana maintained the line up here. He was killed in the fighting as the Union soldiers tried to come up here as far as that blue marker is, as far as they advanced. You can see how daunting a task the Union had to get up to the top of the crest of this hill where the Confederate line was maintained. This place, more than any other on the battlefield, probably represents the awesome and awful task both sides faced. The South to defend Vicksburg, and the North to besiege it and attack it. That's a huge hill. Down in the trenches, Union soldiers dug and were fired on by Confederates up here. Tried to plant a mine against here, and the Confederates prepared a countermine. But still, man after man from the Union just advanced and was killed up here, as were the Confederates on top here, behind a stockade they erected. It's just a huge, huge thing. Just men, the sheer force of men willing to give everything they had, including their life, for their cause. To advance to this point, maybe to be killed. It's a tremendous, tremendous battlefield up here. And this is the Confederate lines that supported or defended Vicksburg, and the daunting task of the Union soldiers advancing from below and from other ridges that they had to cross over to get to this point. Alright, this is on top of Fort Hill, and there's the Mississippi River. Of course, it flows in a different channel than it did during the war. It changes its course, but this is top where the Confederates defended part of the garrison called Fort Hill. Looking down, and the Yankees tried to storm this hill too. Looking north here is the cemetery a little bit.
They didn't try.
Where they didn't try to get on this. Well, they tried to bombard it, I thought.
From the river. They sent the gunboats down.
Okay, the gunboats tried to attack this hill from the river. There's a little bit of the National Cemetery where the Union soldiers are buried. But this is a pretty high point overlooking the river that defended Vicksburg. Alright, this is almost to the top of the Confederate stockade redan. where the Yankees did have a great loss of life to try to scale this hill, and this fort here guarded Vicksburg, mostly by the Confederate States of Missouri infantry. So you can see this is as far as the Confederates advanced. Like I said, a great loss of life across this hill. You can see the trenches that the Yankees dug down there to avoid sharpshooters' fire. The deep cuts in the hill. Various monuments commemorating where various companies, regiments, and divisions were. But this is one that Yankees tried to scale in May. A great loss of life. And they were repulsed by the Confederates. This is part of the defenses of Vicksburg, the stockade redan. It's interesting to us that the Missouri sent soldiers to fight for both the South and the North, and some of those guys fought side by side along this hill, well, against each other, not side by side, brother against brother, as they say, from the state of Missouri, one of the border states. Again, we're on top of the stockade redan, part of the defense of Vicksburg. Confederates put up the east face and the north face here. You can see those blue tablets and some of those stone markers mark the furthest advance of the Yankees against Confederates, which included both the divided Missouri fighting for both the North and the South. Again, up on the stockade redan, an important part of the defense, the 8-mile line around Vicksburg. That was guarding Graveyard Road you just saw as one of the approaches into the city. Alright, this cannon upturned here under this tree marks the site where General Pemberton met with General Grant to discuss terms of surrender for the city of Vicksburg. On July 3rd, 1863, terms were unacceptable to Pemberton, but Grant let the terms about being paroling all the Confederate soldiers allowed, and Vicksburg was surrendered on July 4th, 1863. Over there is the Louisiana Monument. And the Great Redoubt. The Louisiana Redoubt is over here. Okay, whatever. You'll have to edit my videos sometimes. Okay. That's a good picture though right there. Let me get that picture. Alright, we're in Fort Garrett, another Confederate garrison along the defensive line around Vicksburg. This is in the south near the railroad redoubt. And the Confederates held this line. You can see some blue tablets down there where the Union soldiers tried to advance, or as far as their advance got, digging trenches in the hillside. And where Jimmy's running around, some zigzag trenches that were done to avoid the sharpshooters that would have been positioned up here. Most of them were filled in a long time ago, and time has taken its toll too, but the guide told us the Civilian Conservation Corps at some point filled in a lot of different things. But here is an area of land that was cleared so that you could see what the battlefields would have looked like back in the day. They weren't all covered with forests and trees, they were cleared, and men would fight to hold this position while others in the Union would fight to take this position. It was really a kind of a failed attempt. Vicksburg would fall was a siege, which eventually it did. After 47 days of siege, with the soldiers being sick and diseased, not being able to relieve each other, and the citizens being starved, Pemberton surrendered to Grant on July 4th, 1860. This is a pretty impressive memorial. It's one for Kentucky, a divided state, sent men to fight both in the Confederacy and in the Union. You could almost miss it. It's back in the off the beaten trail. But it says, united we stand, divided we fall. And there's Jefferson Davis and Abraham Lincoln, both born in Kentucky. It's honoring soldiers from both sides. Those that fought in the Union. Again, talking about Abraham Lincoln, son of Kentucky, and Jefferson Davis, the son of Kentucky, and the soldiers that fought for the Confederacy. A very impressive memorial to the divided state of Kentucky. Again, Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis. This is the Iowa Memorial at Vicksburg. The northern states tended to put up more elaborate memorials and put them up earlier than the Confederate states did. They probably had more money at the time. These memorials, for the most part, were being raised about 100 years ago. A lot of them were put up in 1906. And a lot of folks from the north fought for particularly Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. Our guide suggested it was because those people were fighting for the opening of the Mississippi River because their economy depended a lot on the ability to get their products down the Mississippi River.